G'day, AJ Mahar here. Talk a little bit about the Johnny Depp trial, the civil trial versus Amber Heard. And there's been so much speculation online and or more, but I didn't want to say anything about whether Amber Heard had borderline personality disorder or not until now, because today, day 9 of the trial, Dr. Shannon Curry, a forensic psychologist, said in court that Amber Heard was diagnosed with, and previously, but diagnosed recently, in this process in December, with borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. When you think back, and if you haven't heard, at least there's one or there are two recordings or more on YouTube. But if you think back and you haven't, and you've heard that, and you're the ex of somebody with BPD, or you wonder if that person with BPD that's been in your life might be like what it means to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, comorbid with histrionic personality disorder, which I'm kind of surprised to hear is still being diagnosed that way. But because in all the work I do, I don't do diagnoses. So just to make that clear, if it hasn't been clear. So, yeah, Dr. Shannon Curry, and I think from what I saw today, that would be the psychologist for, she's a forensic psychologist for, it seems like, the plaintiff, Johnny Depp. So, and that is another thing that will be countered, likely, by a psychologist, psychiatrist, or forensic psychologist on the side of the defense. But if you've heard those recordings, you know, it just seems, and Johnny Depp, we've heard in the court proceedings, I haven't really had time to pay much attention to it, but during one of their events, let's just call it, you know, lost a part of the top of one of his fingers, and he seems to be a man who's not only as a celebrity, you know, I mean, people suffer, whether you're a celebrity or not, right? But he seems to have suffered a lot, and it's very public, and that's got to make it even more difficult for him. So I think that's interesting. The process of diagnosis with a forensic psychologist with Amber Heard on 2 dates in December, they spent approximately 15 hours, not straight, but 15 hours total together for that diagnosis to be made, which is, again, I don't know if it's going, it'll probably be countered by a defense psychologist perhaps, but what I heard was that there was a history and prior diagnosis, if I heard that correctly, with Amber Heard with at least borderline personality disorder. So it seemed like she had a real history with that, of some involvement with mental health, and also a previous diagnosis, according to the psychologist, the forensic psychologist that said her diagnosis just an hour or so ago, in the courtroom today.
Borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder.
The forensic psychologist testifying in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard civil litigation trial, not sure what it's totally called, and that was the words borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder that Amber Heard was diagnosed with by Dr. Shannon Curry, a forensic psychologist who's testifying right now. And the other thing that's interesting about this is there are 387,000 people in the live stream of this on Law and Crime YouTube channel. And so what I think is interesting about this, like other cases when celebrities or well-known athletes or just prominent people who are well-known in society, when somebody gets a diagnosis or talks about it themselves, borderline personality disorder, that it doesn't seem to really go far in the news or into the court system in understanding about what does that really mean in a way that would help a broader knowledge base of what is borderline personality disorder be out there for more people, right? Because nobody's really going to be paying attention to that specifically. I mean, the court trial, and yes, there's 360,000 people in the live stream. Just saying, you can't read anything in there. But for all that you might know about BPD or be trying to find out right now still, or if you have BPD yourself, or if you've had a person with BPD in your life in any relationship type or a significant other, or you have an ex right now, and you might identify with codependency and you're going through all this difficulty, as I work with clients who are trying to survive the BPD relationship breakup and what happens. And what happens specifically, I mean, women also get very hurt by men with BPD, but in the case where Amber Heard, was just made public through the live feed of the court that she's been diagnosed formally by a forensic psychologist with borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. And so it's interesting to even see that it's a civil court case though, because does it come up as often in criminal cases? And it might, and you think that it should. But often these things aren't considered enough when it comes to, in this case, I don't think it's on the table, but when it comes to breakups with, especially for men who have, but for women too, there's issues. If the father is somebody with BPD and then custody arrangements. But for men, who've been with a borderline ex-woman, obviously, except for gay men, then the problem is systemically that the courts and society are not learning more about borderline personality disorder. And for all the information that's online, and I will just say there are several schools of thought on, how one looks at what is borderline personality disorder, and I certainly talk about it here within a lens of a perspective of psychology that is humanistic, and I try to explain the mechanisms of what's happening to, in why people with BPD do what they do in general. And then when I work with clients, it goes further into that and of course, into the recovery and the understanding and the working on the codependency and the family of origin. But the thing is, so for all that we know, this is what is so sad about all of this, really, for so many people, and beyond sad, tragic, and very painful, is that even with this high profile a case out there, as there's been others, and other celebrities who've talked about a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, Pete Davidson, the comedian from Saturday Night Live, comes to mind, formerly of Saturday Night Live. He's talked about it. And Brandon Marshall, NFL football player, and he's talked about it. And I think they both received treatment, and I think Brandon Marshall, it seems last I heard, was doing really well and had a very high profile talking about borderline personality disorder. So, but that's a high profile of borderline personality disorder from two males. And I don't know if there's been a lot of that with female, like celebrities, like for sure that we knew this or that. But so I just think that I haven't had much time to follow the trial, obviously, but it is my hope about this is that somehow this will get more people to ask the questions about what is borderline personality disorder out there in the world, maybe before they encounter it. Like, for anyone listening to my channel or listening to this, well, you've probably already encountered it, unfortunately, but I just think it's important to remember that not all people with BPD are the same, and not all people with BPD will be diagnosed with BPD with, I guess, comorbid existing histrionic personality disorder, or anything else for that matter. And BPD is not NPD, by the way. But having said that, as I often do, my hope with this, and the defense may counter, is the defense going to say the same thing? Will they be calling a different expert witness? Was this the prosecution's forensic psychologist? I don't know. Is this going on the record that that's the diagnosis, period, or is it going to be challenged? It was interesting to just watch a few minutes of that and see Amber Heard. Is that, that has to be tough. When I guess, I don't know, is she some kind of celebrity too? Like, I know who Johnny Depp is, but I'm not familiar with Amber Heard's work. But that would have to be very difficult also for, someone that well known to deal with that. So, my hope is that Amber Heard is in treatment, and is working on that, because it can be a very shaming thing, especially when you're a high profile person. And of course, she's probably infamous as well as famous. I don't know what her work is, and as an actress or whatever. And so I just think that this is my hope, and only reason for talking about this here briefly is because it came out today, and maybe people have been talking about it, speculating about it, but I didn't want to say anything until it came out of the mouth of a mental health professional who diagnosed her with Amber Heard with borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder, and spent 15 hours with her to do that. So my hope is that this will broaden an understanding of borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. And I wonder how often that's getting diagnosed comorbidly like that now, because there are people with BP that are very histrionic. Again, could be traits of, could be, as in the case with Amber Heard, as the forensic psychologist testified today, that it's both BPD and HPD. But I just wanted to say, my hope with this, and if people have heard some of those arguments, the recordings that were put out that have been on YouTube for some time now, and if you haven't, you might want to look for them if you've experienced this. But remember that not everybody, male or female, with borderline personality disorder, whether with histrionic personality disorder as well or not, is going to be exactly the same. And it's really important for people to keep that in mind, because what matters most for you is the person who's in your life in any relationship type with borderline personality disorder, or if it's an ex, or whatever the case may be. What matters most is the patterns and your experience, whether they're diagnosed or not, so patterns being important, to have an awareness of what you're going through in your own individual experience, and to not think that what everybody says online is going to mirror your experience, or what's happened between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, what we know about it, what's coming out in that trial, what the recordings released prior suggested. Many people may relate to that, unfortunately, that's what they went through with somebody who was a significant other, or may still be going through something similar to the way that Amber Heard behaved, allegedly, with Johnny Depp in that relationship. So, but what's missing is, first of all, I just want to reiterate again, BPD is not NPD, which is a lot of misinformation out there about. A bigger issue, and the question is, do you think that this coming, this being said out loud in a court, 367,000 people on the live stream, but everybody going to hear about it, that Amber Heard has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder? Do you think this is going to make a difference in society for people understanding this in a broader way? Because I guess the point I'm trying to get to here is that for all the information that's online, and for when people start to figure out patterns or know someone in their life in any relationship type that gets diagnosed with BPD, then there's so much stigma and everything, and they're not all the same. But then it's like, then people can find, a lot of information online about it, right? And it doesn't all come from the same perspective or viewpoint. So that's important to consider. But beyond people experiencing it in their own personal lives and being hurt really often by people with untreated borderline personality disorder, it's still not really very much known out in the world at large in general. So I wonder what this will mean. What does it mean to you? Does it matter to you? Does it help you to identify with what you've been through, because maybe you were with somebody similar to Amber Heard in a relationship and then a breakup? Or does it remind you partly of, because if you know the history of what happened in that relationship, what's alleged in that relationship, how really incredibly intense, to say the least, that their arguments were, and how frequent. And I saw a video, I think it was from a year ago, with Johnny Depp standing beside Amber Heard. And the title was Johnny Depp being really uncomfortable with Amber Heard, and the reason because he was obviously very traumatized by her. So, or allegedly traumatized by her. But I think, you know what I mean. So, my hope for this is that it will bring this out further from sort of people who've gone through it to start a bigger kind of education, which I think lots of people are working on, right? To educate the public at large about borderline personality disorder. But I don't think it's been too successful over all these years. And what's that going to bring into this civil court case, I wonder? And will that be, like I said, will it be countered by the defense? Will it be part of the record that's established? Because it seems like the forensic psychologist that you heard just a couple words from earlier in this audio video, whatever to call it, that she definitely has been diagnosed, but I didn't play anymore because the forensic psychologist also said there was a history and indicated that there were previous diagnoses of borderline personality disorder allegedly in Amber Heard's mental health records. So anyway, is this, do you think, going to help you in any way understand what you've been going through? Does this matter to you? Do you think that this will help in a broader education in society about borderline personality disorder?